Hello, and welcome to this presentation about Bangor Business School's Business and Management undergraduate degrees. My name's Stephen Jones, and I'm a senior lecturer in the school where I teach international business and marketing. I work with undergraduate, postgraduate, business executives, and also I work with companies in helping them to formulate and implement their strategic plans. The screen you see behind me is not from a photo data bank. It's actually from one of the projects that I was talking about with tourism companies in Ireland and North Wales. So you can be assured that your lecturers not only teach and research, but they also interact with companies for real life situations and transfer those business ideas and skills to you in your interaction. The vision in all teaching is to encourage people to be creative, to be innovative, so that they stand out as being competitive and having a competitive advantage. That, of course, is clearly important for companies. It's also important for you as students, so that at the end of the time, when you come to the position of competing against others for jobs, you stand out as being different. Before I tell you about the components of the degrees, I want to pose with you a dilemma that I face. Normally, at a face-to-face situation, we would have a question about a recent current business situation, and we'd talk about it during the session. On consideration, I see no reason why that approach shouldn't be continued in this situation. And therefore, I'm going to, rather than describe each module in detail, expose you to some of the ways that we teach, so that it's less about how we teach, but more about how you learn. And here's the situation for you to think about. It's from a recent seminar in one of my modules about trends in business, and it's about the company Ryanair. Because if we were meeting face to face, you would travel to Bangor. Some of you may travel by plane. Of course, travel isn't only for education, for work purposes, it's also for leisure. And many of you may have traveled on the company Ryanair for leisure purposes. Even if you're not familiar with Ryanair, but have traveled with other budget airlines elsewhere in the world, the business model that we'll be talking about is not unique to Ryanair, it's shared by many others. Normally, Ryanair flies to many European destinations from the UK. They're often regional airports who are keen to attract passengers and airlines, and Ryanair focuses on being a budget carrier. Even before the current restrictions on flights, Ryanair was always very keen to be in the news, in the belief that, as many commentators view, to be in the news raises awareness, provided, of course, it's positive news. I'll pose some questions about Ryanair. I'll give you my thoughts at the end of the session. If you want to engage with the questions, then at the point in this presentation where I give you a warning that I'm about to give the answers, then perhaps you'd like to pause the video while you continue to think about the answers. Okay, so here we go. Here's the business situation. The screen shows now Ryanair flying over the green fields of Ireland. I'm picking up my earlier comments about competitive advantage. Ryanair flies from regional airports so that its passengers don't need to travel to major airports. These regional airports are very keen to attract passengers and therefore offer to the airlines very attractive landing fees. However, this does sometimes mean that passengers have to travel some distance on landing to the destination they'd like to go to. Ryanair operates only one aircraft, the 737, and this gives them economies of scale in the maintenance facilities that are required. It offers, as a result, a no-frills budget experience, no-frills ticket price, which includes only a seat allocated to the passenger by Ryanair. It also includes some hand-carry luggage. But if you wish to choose a specific seat, if you wish priority boarding, if you want to have refreshments in flight, if you want to include extra baggage, then there's an extra charge. So based on that, which Ryanair clearly believes is a competitive advantage, the questions I'd like you to consider, and I'll conclude with at the end of this session, are: who do you think are the majority of Ryanair's customers? And I'll show a slide in a moment that talks about the key points of the message that Ryanair gives to its customers. When you look at this slide, focus on how it links low fares and low emissions of carbon. Finally, I'd like you to consider how the European Union, in the third slide, names Ryanair as one of Europe's top 10 carbon emitters, when Ryanair claims to be the lowest emitter of all major airlines. Finally, think about why these questions matter. I'll move on to the second slide. You can be reading that while I tell you a little bit about the structure of business and management degrees at Bangor Business School, and how various modules could help you if you are employed in an organization that needed to answer questions like these. Business and management degrees at the business school contain a wide range of modules covering business topics and functions of business. In each of the 3-year degrees, you will need to gain 120 credits. Some degrees are joint with subject areas in the school: business management and finance, business management and marketing, business management with accounting, and also across the university, business management and the language, business management and law, and sports science and psychology with business. With most degrees, you can choose to spend a year outside the UK or in industry. And in this case, your degree will last for 4 years. Some parts of your degree will be compulsory. This will vary with the degree that you choose. Other modules will be elective or optional to allow you to construct a degree which is unique to yourself. Another way to be unique is that Bangor operates the Bangor Employability Awards. Non-credit bearing, but demonstrate to a potential employer the range of activities you've undertaken which may be useful to that employer. In your studies, knowledge will be introduced to you through a variety of methods, including lectures and seminars, tutorials and case studies and guest lectures. There are also several ways in which you can demonstrate your knowledge: essays, exams, presentations, case analyses. Different modules use the most appropriate method or combination of methods for the subject. Let me move on to the next slide for you to have a look at. Here on the left-hand side, it talks about a report in a newspaper about Ryanair accused of greenwashing. The term greenwashing is when a company claims that it's environmentally friendly but may not be so. So the headline says, Ryanair accused of greenwash over carbon emission claims. Well, the previous slide you just seen clearly set out those carbon emission claims, and the UK watchdog bans an advert, in fact that advert, because they said it was misleading. At the bottom of the left-hand side of this screen, it shows that the European Union reported Ryanair as one of Europe's top 10 carbon emitters. How can that be? How can Ryanair say one thing and regulators say a different thing? Incidentally, look on the right-hand side of the screen and you'll see that there's a report about emissions from different modes of transportation, emissions per passenger kilometre travelled, the CO2 emissions and the secondary effects. Notice that a domestic flight emits more than the long-haul flight. That's mainly because it's the going up and the coming down that's the problem and creates most pollution, and it's actually the long-haul cruising which is the most efficient. Notice how that one passenger in a car is a lot less efficient, produces much more emissions than 4 passengers in a car. Well, let's get back to this discussion about the structure of the business school degrees. In your first year of study, while you consider the implications of the statement on the right-hand side and the left-hand side of the screen, in the first year of your study at Bangor Business School, it's a foundation for later years. In business and management degrees, you have the opportunity to master the building blocks of business management, marketing, business analytics, economics, and accounting. And in years 2 and 3, you'll progressively specialize in your chosen area. All modules include elements of applying the knowledge and concepts to practical situations with a focus on aspects that are of interest to business. Let's see now if I can get myself back in the screen. There we go. The idea of concepts and application applies across the degree. Let me illustrate some particular modules for you to consider. The field of human resource management in Bangor is twinned with that of leadership, as the two go hand in hand. The Customer Insight Project and Enterprise by Design both focus on real organizations in the area around Bangor, and they face opportunities and challenges, and students work to help them address those. My own International Business Competency module provides not only the concepts and tools to examine situations internationally, but also to analyze your own competency in international business. Now, this is the warning point, not about the degree, but about getting ready for the solutions. So if you want to work on those questions I posed earlier, applied to Ryanair and the European Union, and try to understand why different stakeholders might have different opinions, then as I finish this sentence, it'll be the time for you to pause and continue your reflection. After you've created your own opinions, you can always return to this video and hear my thoughts. So here we go with the solutions. The majority of Ryanair's customers, as you'll know if you've ever flown with Ryanair, or indeed any of the other budget airlines around the world, the majority of budget airline customers are predominantly you and me, going on leisure travelers who want convenient point-to-point travel and budget no-frills airfares. The numbers who are business travelers are relatively few. If you looked at the message about Ryanair in that advert, Ryanair specifically says you are traveling on the airline with Europe's lowest emissions, i.e. you're doing your bit for the environment. The lowest carbon emissions of any major airline because they operate the youngest fleet of aircraft, they operate the most efficient engines, and they have the highest load factors. 97% of seats are filled, so that they're not burning fuel, just carrying empty seats around. Ryanair pays taxes for environmental purposes in Europe, but customers still manage to enjoy the lowest possible fares, the company says. In addition, at the bottom of the advert, you'll see that Ryanair said, if you wish to, you can contribute through this site to a donation to offset the carbon cost of your flight. So the message is quite clear. Ryanair is environmentally friendly at a time when there's lots of criticism of the airline industry. So on the basis of that, how can the EU claim that Ryanair is one of the top 10 polluters in Europe, and Ryanair be correct when it says that it has the lowest pollution per passenger kilometre travelled? Indeed, looking at the figures, Ryanair claims 66 grams of carbon dioxide for every passenger kilometre flown. And we see that that's very efficient on that scale of different transportation forms and their carbon emissions. But of course, Ryanair carries so many passengers. In 2019, it carried more than 140 million passengers. So both claims could be correct. Ryanair for polluting less than all other airlines per passenger kilometre travelled because of the volume of passengers. But the EU could be right in that Ryanair is still a major polluter because of the number of passengers it carries. The fourth question I asked you to consider was, why do these questions matter at all? Well, they're important because they influence passenger choices. They may influence which airline to travel with as compared to other airlines. They may influence indeed whether we travel at all by airline. Therefore, they're vital to Ryanair's continuing competitive advantage. They may also influence authorities who govern airlines and who seek to control pollution in the decisions that they make regarding regulations. Well, to finish off, I'll set you two further aspects of Ryanair to think about. What beneficial effects could there have been with the recent reduction worldwide of aircraft flying? And secondly, historically, you might have been asked to submit your answer to me on a postcard. Now, of course, it would be sent by email or social media. Technology plays a significant influence on what consumers expect, and indeed how companies create and manage their businesses. Well, as I draw this session to a close, I hope that you found our discussion of Ryanair of some interest, and that the figures on emissions from the different forms of transportation may be of interest and actually influence your travel plans in the future. However, on the assumption that you will be traveling to Bangor to study, I look forward to meeting you here in Bangor so that together we can continue our exploration of issues of business and management. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.